Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see so many smiling faces around my screen today. I'm Scott Venker. I'm the new Chief Executive of the Melbourne Chamber of Commerce, and I'm delighted to be assisting with hosting this Leaders Forum today. So we've got Nick Foa here, the Head of Transport Services at the Department of Transport, and I think it's going to be a really fantastic session, so I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. I'd first like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, wherever you are joining us from, and would like to pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. In a moment, you'll hear from Paul Guerra, who will provide an update on the Victorian Chamber's advocacy on behalf of business. And then he'll be followed by Nick Foa, who will provide us with an update on the public transport plan during COVID, and how community confidence will be restored in the public transport network as safe, frequent and reliable to support city workers returning to the city, before opening up to a group discussion, and hopefully we'll get a few questions from the audience today. So as per normal, we're in a Zoom meeting which is recorded, but please treat it like we're sitting around a long table amongst friends. We've allowed some time for audience Q&A. And we ask you to keep yourself on mute until we open for questions. Then, of course, unmute and ask away. You're also welcome to post comments and questions using the chat function, which I'm sure everyone's become competent in using over the last couple of months. It's now my pleasure to invite Paul Guerra, the Chief Executive of the Victorian Chamber, to talk about our advocacy. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Scott, and welcome everybody. And to you, Scott, the first formal occasion in your new role, and great to have you in that role. I'm sure our members will get a lot of benefit having you in there. So, all the best to you. I know you'll make it work really well. I'm really excited to hear from Nick. We were just chatting then. I think I met Nick day 2 in my current role. We'd crossed paths so many years before that. And I think, Nick, you said you've had 3 different roles since then, and the one you're in now is critical for us, and really looking forward to your comments a bit later on. In terms of what we've been doing, I mean, the success is there, right? So pretty much every sector now is open, save for a few. Of particular note are events. Of particular note are the ability to return to the office. We know some of the return to office, particularly in the CBD area, will be contingent upon confidence in public transport. And that's just not actual confidence, it's perceived confidence as well. The challenge we have in the CBD area is not actually as much the public transport, because I think once people use it, the confidence will be there. It's actually getting people up and down elevators in a timely fashion, given the new limits that will be there on elevators. So I'm sure Nick will have a bit to say in terms of where the transport is at. The last thing that we're looking at in terms of big picture stuff for businesses returning is getting hospitality limits up to where New South Wales are at. We know we'll go to 100 in less than 2 weeks. New South Wales are currently at 300, so we've got a bit of work to do to get there, but I'm confident we'll be able to get there as well. So with that, and particularly the news overnight of the vaccine, we should start to contemplate life after COVID. Obviously, we want to keep the spread down to the level that we've had. 9-10 days in a row of 0 is fabulous. We want to keep it at that way, but at the same time, we want to start getting moving again. And as we get moving, that brings a risk of COVID spread. I think we just need to work out how to live with that COVID spread, as well as getting life back to some type of normal as well. How Victoria recovers from this is going to be up to all of us, and that's kind of where we're starting to move our thinking to now. We'll have a bit more to say about that, but I challenge each of us now to start rethinking where Victoria will be, because going back to what it was 10 months ago probably isn't going to be possible, and nor do we want it to be. Sadly, the wrecking ball that is COVID is going to have changed a lot forever. How do we deal with that? What can we do with that? Ultimately, though, we want Victoria to be the place in Australia to operate a business. We're the last coming out of it because of the second wave, how do we quickly get on the front foot and move more and more businesses into a stronger position than what they currently are in Victoria. Part of that, of course, is around the budget submission that we made, and we'll hear from the State Treasurer in terms of what that looks like. We were really clear in our submission this year. There's 50 to 60 odd items that we put asking for consideration on. We had a good hearing with Treasurer Tim Pallas a couple of weeks back now. We've kind of themed it up into three main areas. The first being support and grow local business. The second, and we say that because businesses having been shut for a period of time, we'll have a debt bubble there that will need to be repaid at some point in time, and they'll need support to do that. Otherwise, they'll go under because of the weight of the debt bubble. Every business that goes is a bunch of jobs that go as well. So we need to make sure that business survives through this. The second is to reclaim and enhance our global reputation. Like it or not, the second wave of COVID, it has a double-edged effect on Victoria. Negative in terms of there's question marks. How does Victoria play against the other states in Australia? But positive in terms of we've been able to beat the second wave. So there's some good news coming out of that as well. What we have to do is reclaim the positions because we want further investment from external companies. We want further investment from tourism, and we want to make sure that our event sector is protected through that as well. And then the third one, which ties a little bit into what Nick will talk about today, is what's the next big infrastructure build? The truth is we're coming to the end of the current pipeline, number one. But number two, I think COVID's taught us that perhaps the priorities will have shifted. We're all used to working from home now. We may not all like it, but I think we're all used to it. Certainly, I think we'll see a blended environment going forward. And I think that opens up potential for rethinking the whole of Victoria rather than just metropolitan Victoria. So, for example, if we're able to get quicker access to the regions through public transport or road transport, does that mean we can start to live and think differently about how Victoria operates, even though our main job may be in the CBD? So we think there's some conversation and some challenges that need to occur in that space as well. And then just finally from me, and Scott will touch on this a bit later on, but we're really excited in a new area of the Melbourne Chamber with Scott's leadership. We're adding a number of people to our team progressively this week. So you'll hear a person called Dylan Broomfield who's joined our policy and advocacy team as a general manager. Dylan joins us from Treasurer Tim Pallas's office, and really excited to have Dylan joining us. Tim O'Callaghan is joining directly into Scott's team. He'll look after strategic initiatives. Tim spent 27 years with Qantas, spent the last 12 months in a range of guises from Visit Victoria directly, and then directly working for the state government on the bushfire recovery as well. So, to say he understands the visitor economy space is an understatement, and he'll add his weight to this as well. And then an individual called Murray Newton will join our team later this week as well, directly back into Dougal's team, but adding more weight into that policy and advocacy side. You can expect to see a lot of Dylan, Murray and Tim through Scott and Troy and Lucy before she goes on maternity leave as well. But it's part of where we see the next bastion for the Melbourne Chamber team will be, and we're really excited to have them all with us. So with that, I'll hand you back to Scott.
Thanks so much, Paul. And I think you've taken all of my speaking notes for the conclusion of the webinar, but that's okay. We'll be agile. Thanks again for providing the update. Look, it's my great pleasure now to introduce to Nick to take us through his presentation. So Nick Foa was appointed Head of Transport Services at the Department of Transport in July 2020. What a time to join, having served as the department's Associate Secretary since the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. In his new role in Transport Services, Nick is responsible for the operational aspects of Victoria's transport network, both road and rail. Nick has extensive leadership experience in infrastructure and government administration, having served in a diverse range of public sector roles over the past 28 years. Nick, I'll hand over to you and allow you to take us through your presentation. Thanks so much.
Scott, Paul, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. What a terrific day. The reunification of Victoria 11:59 Monday night. Terrific that we can all start moving around our state again and supporting our regions. And I'm passionate about the visitor economy. I had a little bit to do with the startup of Visit Victoria, and it is a really important time for us to support the visitor economy, as Paul's just outlined. Before I get through the presentation, I too want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from wherever you are in this wonderful state of Victoria. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. And to those three priorities, Paul, support and grow local business. Absolutely, Transport wants to be a partner in that. We're very much working with many councils across the board day to day at the moment in doing that. Reclaiming and enhancing our global reputation. We have the largest tram network in the world. We're known for our iconic trams, and we want to invest heavily in that as part of our brand. And our transport opportunities are truly up there on a global scale. So we have that compact diversity of the state of Victoria, which you referred to, which really does make the regional Victoria play really exciting with the new ways of working. So we want to be partners with you in that. And of course, obviously, the infrastructure bill, there's 70 billion or so in the pipeline, but I take your point. We need to keep looking over the horizon. And much of what I talk about today actually will not be infrastructure solutions per se, but sweating the assets harder and working with what we've got and being smarter about how we apply it. So hopefully I'll touch on those themes as we go through, and you can see that there's a great deal of alignment. But I thought perhaps I'd take you through who we are first in terms of our family of brands, as I like to call it. And you can see the top line there are brands within the department. So PTV, Vic Roads, household names, they still exist in terms of trading as entities. All the licensing and registration, for instance, falls under me, and that's still a Vic Roads function. PTV, we still have the PTV app, which I'll talk a bit about later on. But that family of brands is about providing touch points for various parts of the transport community to see the relevance for them. Regional Roads Victoria is a good example of that. But behind that family of brands is a very united team, which I'll get to in a moment. You'll see there other agencies that form part of reporting agencies into DOT family, and the Suburban Rail Loop Authority is one dear to my heart, having had the enormous opportunity and great honour to have set that organisation up and see it's starting to really hit its straps. As well as our network operators, including V-Line, MTM and others that are here on the call today. Victrack's on the call today, very important part of the transport family. And of course, we work with many other elements of the transport family across a continuum. And our aim is in the back end, we are very united to try and respond faster, sweat the assets we have harder, make much more intelligent, sort of data-informed asset decisions and a holistic view for planning for the future. So whilst you might see a plethora of brands on that page in front of you, I can assure you that behind the scenes that is all joined up. And we work across three ministers that it really importantly, on the far right, Minister Carroll is now the Minister for Roads, Road Safety and Public Transport. So it's probably one of the first times in my career I've seen the ministerial responsibilities follow some of the machinery of government changes that have occurred. So he has a very much a joined up view across PT and the road space. Of course, Minister Allen with Transport Infrastructure and Minister for the Suburban Rail Loop is responsible for that $70 billion worth of pipeline I spoke about a moment ago. But being a former public transport minister, she also has a photographic memory of the network, which is quite scary on occasions. Minister Horn is also still very firmly a major part of our world with freight, ports, fishing and boating. So we support each of those ministers from our DOT team. I will put up the compulsory organisational chart display. Really just to give you a flavour about how we work, from left to right, it really is a life cycle model of work. So Megan Burke O'Neill has this fantastic license to look over the horizon and over the hill, you know, flying cars, all the rest of it, and what's coming next in terms of transport. Transport is a disruptor, and we've seen that in our very, very recent past. What does this new COVID normal look like for transport in the future? And Megan looks at that issue every day and engages the rest of us, engages with our operators to help inform that view. Within those sets of strategic directions, Robin Seymour is then planning the network responses: buses, trams, trains, network responses, timetabling, all of those things in that space, as well as road safety. So she's key in the planning for the network. And asset management decisions that inform how we maintain the network. Then you've got my area, transport services, with all the wonderful partners that we have in the space operating that the roads and rail and trams and bus network on a day-to-day basis, as well as being in charge of the customer experience, the network operations, which is the intelligent road systems and rail systems that inform how the network works on a day-to-day basis. We are mode agnostic, and we are really working very hard on making sure that whatever decision we make in one mode is supported by another. Then you've got the two support arms of Dean Ty, Mel Collinson, that look at the commercial side of the business, the engine room of all our people and culture that keeps us ticking forward, as well as our IT space, under the guise, obviously, of Paul Eunice. Paul is a terrific secretary that has done a Herculean task of bushfires, then straight into COVID. I don't think he's had a day off since about November last year, and he's working really, really well at bringing us all together. So I'm as concerned about the KPIs in Robin or Megan's area as they are as concerned about mine, and we are very much joined up. Part of the benefits of this new way of working, we're meeting every day for at least half an hour, touch base as a group, and the coordination's never been better.
Nick, I'd just add to that. The whole team, led by Paul, have been incredibly accessible through this period, and I think it shows in the way that you talk about the working. But for Paul to make himself as available, given the pressure that he's been under, has been greatly appreciated. Yeah,
thanks, Paul. Yeah, very much. So then we get on to COVID itself and what happened. So this is a shot of Southern Cross Station on the 17th of September. As you mentioned, Paul, I joined in July this year after doing the Suburban Rail Loop setup and the Associate Secretary role, helping Paul at the start of COVID. And who would have thought that we were down to sort of passenger numbers at 9% of the regular network operations. But instead of saying, like some jurisdictions, okay, let's look for some short-term cost savings and pare back the amount of services that we're running, we recognised transport, and government recognised transport was an essential service to making sure that frontline workers could get out to work, supplies could continue to be delivered to hospital, and people could move around the state. So we went the other way. We added more services and another 95 additional peak train services, 2 new CBD tram shuttle services, and we, upgraded things like hand sanitizer stations, put over 350 those across the network, and we introduced COVID-safe protocols on the 2,200 school buses that kept running. Whilst our numbers were really, really low, we knew we were performing a really, really important service. Friday's stat is we're back at 31%. So we're a third of people are back on the network already for PT, and that's a pretty strong result. School buses obviously were much higher, Paul, as the office workers return to work, and it'll be a theme I come toward at the end, is how we work together about distributing those demand patterns as best as we can. So the PT space hasn't quite caught up yet to its pre-COVID levels, but of course the road space has, and one of the concerns we have, of course, is the differentiation between the numbers of road users coming back versus the number of PT users coming back. We run the risk of significant mode shift gains over the last 10 years being lost, and we've got to make sure we try to make people feel as safe as possible on public transport, so we lock in those mode shift gains. But the PT network, the roads network also halved. One benefit of that is we're 41 deaths down on the road tolls, same time as last year, and that's a real positive. But we're already back to 84% of our baseline volumes on the road network. Interestingly, Cup Day, we got to 96% of the same day the previous year. And I think a lot of that was because there was still no one allowed to go to regional Victoria. So my neck of the woods, Williamstown, was being smashed. We had traffic jams all the way back to Newport. So it's a pretty interesting time. Look, we're working really hard with our messaging to our community, and we worked, it took me ages to work this out. The Sakut campaign, the Staying Apart Keeps Us Together campaign, has been really, really successful. We've leveraged that with our PT workers doing a thank you campaign through the really, the darkest days of the pandemic during lockdown. And by and large, Melburnians were just terrific, wearing masks properly, social distancing properly, and we can see that through the numbers, as Paul referred to. So, Melbourne, hats off to you. You've done an amazing job. We will build on this Staying Apart, Keeping Us Together message again with the next iteration of messages where we welcome people back to the network, and we'll have more to say, and government will have more to say about a welcoming back message as we move out of restrictions. Part of the benefits about lower traffic numbers on the network have been we've been able to smash some of the big build projects really hard and fast. So the Upfield line handed back 2 weeks ahead of schedule. That's 2 weeks worth of savings of replacement buses, of traffic management, of disruption to people. And look, you can see the before and after shot there. People will come back to parts of the network that will be unrecognisable from before lockdown. The Thompsons Road, Frankston, Dandenong Road intersection was completed in 5 weeks. That's instead of 5 months. So people were able to, contractors were able to get machinery and equipment and materials to site, and with less people on the network, we were able to really crack on. So yes, we made some noise along the Upfield corridor with 24/7 operations. I apologise to anybody living along that corridor, but look at the result. It is absolutely spectacular. And that's part of the big build that we mentioned. So we've been able to crack on with those. And I must thank all the construction industry people that have put in COVID-safe plans that have been phenomenal. New technology where people were bagging their mask at the end of the day with a QR code, having that tested overnight for any fragments, and reporting the next day. The construction industry led the way with COVID-safe plans and have done an incredible job. And as a result, we're now seeing them, as Paul said, as one of the industries that are able to open and no longer considered a high-risk industry. So congratulations to everybody on the call that's been part of that. If we talk about reform and the opportunities that come out of this COVID journey that we've all been on, data and analytics is going to be a really important part of our agenda going forward. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the trials that we're doing, but our partners with NTT Data, I think who are in the room today, are doing a lot of work with us about how do we get Mikey to be more integrated. So I'll show a couple of slides on the Mikey app shortly where we've done a full integration of that, and it's been terrific work. We've had to look at with a different lens rather than taking years to come up with solutions. We need to do that in weeks. And we got great support from the Crisis Committee of Cabinet to do a number of trials with the private sector. If we were going to fail, let's fail fast and work it out. But we've got some really exciting innovations in the pipeline that are going to put technology in the hands of consumers and customers to be able to make their own choices, and in the hands of intelligent data and network centres that are going to be able to help us change the network. And the first one of those is the Creating More Road Space program that is an amazing rollout of technology, and it's been an 300 million plus worth of investments. So whilst I said earlier, Paul, it mightn't all be about the big build. Some of it might be about let's being much smarter and faster about how we get the road space we have to work better. And that's work better for pedestrians, work better for active transport, work better for tram and bus for where they integrate with the road, and indeed the car users on our road space. So, we're changing the way how we configure signalling around the road space. We're employing a raft of new signallers, training up new people in using new data. We're deploying variable messaging boards, Bluetooth sensors, CCTV cameras right across the network, and also crowdsourcing data from a range of other suppliers, connecting all of that together and helping us make informed decisions. There'll be some pain that comes with that for some inner city councils with and businesses learning to adjust with the new clearways. Clearways within 20 k's of the CBD will become tow-away zones. I can't emphasise the amount of congestion that people parking in clearways in the AM and PM peaks creates. So they will be tow-away zones. However, we will get Melbourne moving through this first rollout of 2 areas of Melbourne for the Creating More Road Space program. And in the PTV space, I've touched upon the sensational work that NTT Data and other partners have done with us to help get the next gen Myki app up. We've done 2 releases since July. There's another release coming in December. It's now fully accessible. It's been designed with Vision Australia. It's got live tracking of buses. It's fully integrated with your Myki account management within the app. It's got upgraded journey planners. You can get push notifications for your favourite journeys, for your travel alerts, and it'll have integrated disruption information and news updates. So we're trying to incentivise that, and we're trying to big drive to get people to register their Myki. If they register their Myki, we can get you better information about the trips that you take more regularly, and we'll have early bird discounts to try and spread those peaks and offer a range of incentives for people to spread peaks when they return back to the network. It's really interesting to me that we've all got an e-tag in our car, and we're quite happy for Transurban to have our banking information, but we've got a pretty low take-up by comparison on registering your Myki app. So that should be something that we hope all employers will get behind, because that will also help us in contact tracing and the like in the future as well, if required. I'm zipping through here. This is my call to arms to you and your membership, Paul, is help us help you, which is spreading the peaks will happen because of workplace policies. The policies that you and your members adopt at your workplace levels, providing by adhering to the advice of Brett Sutton and DHHS more broadly. I heard you talk about elevators. The best way to make sure there's not long queues outside of elevators is to spread start and finish times, stagger days of the week. Of course, we all can't be Tuesday through Thursday and all have long weekends every weekend, because that'll just consolidate all the demand into that period of time. But we want to work with you to make sure we adopt the CBD policies that are going to help spread those peaks and help us maintain social distancing wherever possible. And let's keep a lid on this thing. We've done such a great job together as Victorians, and I can't wait for us to get to COVID normal and for Melburnians to come back and enjoy the greatest city in the world. And I'll leave you with that, Paul. Happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick.
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
No, all good. That was a really comprehensive sort of overview of all the initiatives that are happening in regards to the department. Some of those stats in terms of public transport usage, for example, now being up to a third is a bit higher than I would have thought, but that's great to see. And obviously that continued investment in innovation, and equally a request from us, from you to us in terms of making sure our employees are registering Myki, and we've got a bit to play as part of this solution as well. So I'd like now to open up to the audience to see if there's anyone who'd like to ask Nick a particular question. If you do, please unmute and introduce yourselves, and we can start the formal Q&A part of the session. So if there's anyone who'd like to start.
Scott, I might kick it off if that's all right.
Of course.
Nick, there was conversation around the free tram zone and perhaps some of the remodelling around, the peak and off-peak fares in an incentive to get more people to use public transport. Has there been any advancements on that?
Yeah, look, Paul, I'll start with the hardest one early, the free tram zone. Incredibly popular with some, but obviously does have the impact of people doing some very, very short trips that perhaps a good walk for a city block or two might actually help. Given that now we're going from Zoom to Teams to Skype, many of us are missing out on our 10,000 steps incidental walks. The free tram zone incentivises those short trips, but it is, again, it's a very much loved part of Melbourne's fabric, and particularly by our visitors in the visitor economy. So I'm not seeing a great deal of movement in conversations about that. There are absolutely live conversations about incentivising off-peak travel in a range of different forms. The key issue there, Paul, is when, and we've been waiting for this period of time where we're starting to see the magnificent job that Victorians have done to get us to where we are today. We can now start having those conversations with DHHS about, when is the right time for those incentivising people to return back to travelling beyond their home for work. I think the current advice is if you can work from home, you must. And when that must goes to May, then obviously that's probably the time we start really ramping up our welcome back and our incentives. But yeah, we'll be looking to work with you and with employers to absolutely change the dynamic of us all charging in there on the 7:15 from wherever it is that you come from and heading out on the 5:15 as close as you can get to the nearest station near you. And we've got to change that dynamic. And I think, you described it as a wrecking ball. Absolutely, it has been. But I think it will break up some of those entrenched practices that we've had and potentially make a different Melbourne, one in which that that has expanded hours of trade. We already have such expanded hours of trade, but the downtimes are smoothed out, if you like.
Thank you, Nick. I've got some questions that have been submitted to me as well. If I might just take the stage for a second. So Nick, will Victoria have a formal COVID-safe public transport plan in place before the end of the year, like as some of the other states do now?
Yeah, well, we already have a COVID-safe plan in place in running a safe network. We have the operators have COVID-safe plans in place. We have a significantly strong cleaning regime, and I should touch upon that. And despite some of the negative press around cleaning of recent times for other matters, it is a comprehensive cleaning regime. The difference with us and other states, if we have a universal mandated wearing of masks at this point in time, and that universal, the universality of that law means that we don't have one rule for PT and one rule for the general public. Now, it's recognised on PT that it is not always possible to physically distance at 1.5 metres, and that we use, obviously people observe wearing of masks, using the hand sanitizer stations, but with PT, the doors are opening every 2 minutes. People aren't on there for more than 30. It's not like a workplace where you're sitting side by side with someone for 8 hours, 9 hours a day, sharing food preparation areas and bathrooms. So it is a different prospect. Right at the moment, the CHO's advice is that that we're exempt from the 1.5 metre rule. because we have a range of other mitigations and safety factors in play. So each of our operators does have a COVID safe plan, and we work with them to maintain that on a daily basis.
Great, thank you. I can see Robert waving at me. So Robert, if you can come off mute.
Thanks very much, Scott, and thanks, Nick, for your presentation. I was just wondering, I've spent some time during the lockdown up in New South Wales, and they've got a fairly consistent QR code system for restaurants, places where people do meet. Is there any thought of introducing perhaps some way of having a consistent QR code, has your information pre-populated, which is what's happening now? I don't believe it's in Victoria, that can be used for perhaps different carriages or stations, etc. I think that would be probably the most effective way of contact tracing if you had a particular instance in a, say, carriage 13 on the Sandringham to Melbourne on the 8:15.
Yeah, no, terrific suggestion, and one in which DPC is looking into right now. So we are looking at a QR code system. There's plenty of third-party market providers, but they're not fully integrated back into the wonderful Salesforce contact tracing technology that's been developed here in Victoria. So they're working at the moment about a QR code system that will be a ubiquitous one, and one that will be able to be identified down to that vehicle, but integrated directly back into the contact tracing. I would say, however, that New South Wales have been relying heavily on their Opal system for contact tracing, and has proven to be pretty effective, and as a contributor to contact tracing, not the only the be all and end all. So again, my call out to register Mikeys, and that would make it that would give us an extra line of defence, if you like. But your call on QR code is right, and it's something that the state is pouring enormous resources into at the minute.
Nick, could I put you in touch with someone, a colleague that's developing something that's exactly in those lines? Could I do that for you?
Sure, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. I've actually got some questions that have popped up in the chat too, Nick. Just a request if there's an update on the Monash public transport plan. As you know, there's university has access to buses and then trains, and then as the solution there. So has there been any further progress on that particular initiative?
Not that I am aware of at the moment. Suffice to say, there's an enormous amount of precinct planning going on with Suburban Rail Loop, and you know, the mooted tram, as well as the buses. So the location of the station, the bus interchange, and the tram is something that is a live conversation between Suburban Rail Loop Authority and Monash University and Monash Council as we speak. So I know that there's enormous amount of work going into that space, but I don't have any update for you this morning, Scott. Sorry on that one.
No, absolutely fine. Just having a look at the questions as they come through. So another one that I've got here, quite a sort of micro one in terms of people using public transport. So do passengers on public transport have to wear a mask if they're eating or drinking, such as if they're getting their morning coffee before getting on the train? I'm not sure if you're allowed to drink when you're on the train itself, but your comment to that?
Yeah, well, particularly if you have a long black like me and it's steaming hot, they are quite a dangerous thing on a tram or a train. So we urge people to keep the lid on and perhaps and keep your mask on and have your sip when you get off. Particularly in trams in the city where people are doing fairly short trips. It's you know, it's a common sense rule that masks are required to be worn by everyone. That's a universal rule. Unlike Sydney, and you've seen some press coming out of Sydney that it's been difficult where some people are wearing masks and others aren't, and it's causing a bit of civil concern on the network and some behaviours that perhaps are not great. So I would urge that people maintain their masks on while they're on the network, and by all means eat and drink once they get off.
Yep, great. Thank you. Another one that's popped up on the chat here from me. Are there plans for the stations around the CBD to better handle crowds during the peak periods? And what sort of changes are being considered if so?
Yeah, great question. We've been doing quite a few trials while the passenger numbers are low. We've had some trials of one-way traffic, if you like, at Southern Cross and I think Richmond. So there's been a number of stations where we've trialled different barrier techniques, different one-way traffic, and those sorts of things. So far, it's been working well. We also we have the ability to throw the barriers open, still asking people to touch on, obviously, but to keep people moving more quickly, to throw the gates open. The operators have increased staff and customer service personnel. We've invested a lot in wayfinding, signage, passenger information displays, PIDs. So much more information on the network, more announcements, and real-time data about how we're going. One of the things I didn't talk about and I skipped over was one of the innovations we're working on is a crowding solution where people will be able to go on and get real-time data about the passenger load in that service. We have announced this and it's being trialled on one line with essential workers at the moment, and we're getting some pretty good results. So, fingers crossed that trial works out and we're able to put into various web channels and PTV app channels and the like, real-time crowding information. So if you're standing there at Swanson Street wondering whether to go to Flinders or when Metro opens, the State Library, you'll be able to make the call about see which services are more crowded than the other. So putting information in the hands of passengers to make informed decisions is going to be absolutely one of the key requirements going forward.
Yeah, great. That's brilliant. Thanks for providing that update there. Look, guys, we've run out of time. So thank you for those people that submitted questions via the chat or emailed me directly. I really appreciate that. Nick, thank you so much for making yourself available and for your team for putting together the presentation. I know that I've certainly enjoyed the session. I can tell from some of the comments I've received that a number of our members have as well. Paul, thanks for making yourself available too. As Paul said, this is week 2 for me, so I'm really looking forward, if I haven't met you all yet, to meeting you all soon over the next couple of months and working together with you, and to really get this state back on track and getting the engine room of the economy firing, which as all of you as key members are such an important part of that. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of the day, and we look forward to welcoming you to future events later on this year. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks again, Nick.
Cheers, Paul. Good on you.
Yeah.
Bye.